If you can't change something, then you don't get to be a manager.
Yeah.
That's a caretaker. And we don't really need caretakers in GTM. We need managers that can influence and change outcomes and careers.
At Elements of Culture, we sit down with experts in leadership and team building to explore the DNA that drives a thriving organization.
Hey, Mark, awesome to have you on and welcome to Elements of Culture podcast. I'm obviously
Thank you.
super familiar with your career, but just for our listeners, can you walk us through career highlights, how you've ended up as the Chief Revenue Officer at Docebo? Give us like the once over, and then I'm just buzzing to dive in.
Well, I'm going to start earlier than probably most people because my first real job probably was the catalyst for everything, quite honestly. Is I used to sell shoes in a mall
I saw this on
in
your
a little
LinkedIn.
town in Mississippi. And what I didn't realize at the time was my store manager was actually teaching me consultative sales. I
Nice.
had to sit in the back and watch 14 videos about how to sell the right kind of shoes to people based on their gait and their sport and what they're doing. And I ended up with like 200 people that would only buy their shoes for me. This like little shoe store dude in the mall, right? So crazy. But then I went to college and I became a credit card telemarketer. So I would call anybody and everybody probably around dinner time trying to sell them a credit card. But with that, I learned that no doesn't matter. I literally have calculated it out. I probably got like 14,000 no's over a 4-month period. So I don't care about no anymore. No is just getting the yes, right? And then I started an outside sales job where I sold fundraisers to schools. It was commission only. I had 2 kids at the time. My first year was guaranteed pay of at least $23,000. Let's go. Fire up the grill, steak time.
With 2 kids. I bet they love that one.
So, but I did really well there. I took a territory that had never been a viable territory for a rep in about a decade, and I took it to one of the top 10% best territories in the country out of 250 territories. So it was a top 25 territory and did really well there. Then I got recruited into sales leadership where I still continued to sell stuff to schools, and I had a team up and down the East Coast, and that's where I really, cut my teeth in sales leadership. And then magically, and I do mean magically, like 1 in 10 billion probably, I met a young, semi-young, okay, not young, he's my age.
Yeah.
He was probably at the time we were both in our mid-30s, CEO, co-founder named Manny Medina. And we got introduced to each other through a really interesting guy in New York City. And I was living in the middle of Pennsylvania, nowhere, a town of 5,000 people, and just thought, I don't know how I can advance my career. I was listening to podcasts about technology and startups and stuff in my car every day. And I would be driving, anywhere from 3 to 5 hours a day. So I just was like getting a PhD in that stuff through podcasts. And this is back when, like, you had to download the podcast on your little iPod shuffle. It's actually right up there. That looks like a stick of gum, right? That little thing up there that costs like $120. That thing probably has made me millions of dollars from what I learned from listening to on that thing.
It's insane. I had like a little
Yeah.
CD cassette thing that you put like the CD in and then just carried it around in your bag and have your headphones come in like that.
Yeah, and then you had to worry if it was going to skip. You couldn't like step too hard.
Or just go.
So I did that. I did this. So I met Manny, and luckily he said, "Hey, I'd love for you to teach me about sales." I said, "Well, why am I just not selling outreach?" He said, "We can't afford you." So I quit my job and I went on 100% commission, and I sold about $1 million of outreach in the first 6 months. Manny asked me to lead the sales team. So I went from first employee to leading the sales team to about 250 million bucks. Then I went to the CRO at Catalyst, where I took them from 5.5 to 10.5 in 14 months when they'd taken them 5 years to get to 5.5.
That's insane.
Tried my hand at entrepreneurship, quickly found out I'm not really an entrepreneur. Like, that's not what I want to do right now. I much prefer to be an operator, like running a team. I'd rather figure out how to get the tools to get me results and build those tools. And now I'm the CRO at a publicly traded company called Docebo.
What a career. Like genuinely started from selling shoes to becoming like the shoe man to 23 grand to being CRO of a public traded company.
Pretty crazy. I'm telling you. I'll never forget my ex-wife and I when we were probably, I'm gonna say 23 years old. She might have been 24. We were on our little bed in our $55,000 house in the middle of nowhere that was literally downhill from the worst bar in town. And I don't even want to tell you the stuff that we saw that came walking through our backyard. And we were like, hey, we don't have any money. And we literally found all the change in our house. And I have a vivid memory of laying all the change out in our house. And then we looked at each other and started laughing and said, people get divorced over this? Ridiculous. And now we got divorced over something else, but it was never a money thing. But we did. But we would count change to buy groceries, and we play this game where it's like we won't buy any other food until we eat every morsel of food in our entire house, and until you've had a frozen corn dog with French's onions, fried onions on it with refried beans, you haven't really lived.
I honestly think this is class. Your story's like unreal, right? And like, I feel super lucky because if I could sit and talk about this all day, every day, I would, but my friends just find me like so boring. Like
You too?
genuinely so boring, which is why I have to find friends within the industry that we can just end up talking about this for hours. But I'd love to like unpick like a few things, right? Because there's top of mind for me right now as we're building a business here is there's a few roles, right? And the one thing that really stands out to me right now is like the frontline leadership role. I talk about this role because I believe it's arguably the most important role, but I didn't
It is.
really understand this until I've been part of two successful hypergrowth companies. Very, very lucky. One was in the B2B SaaS space, raised a ton of capital. And then one was in the more high ticket, like Alex Hormozy, Tony Robbins kind of space, like relentless, almost like your sales bros. But like both of those were high performance, but both of them, the sales leadership role could have been X and Y. Like I couldn't quite understand how there was such a difference in how both those operated from like corporate SaaS solution to like relentless high ticket sales. Do I think either or have their like positives? Yeah, but just the combination I think is really powerful. So I'd love to like understand from your perspective. I mean, you've grown massive teams and gone through the ranks, but like, what do you actually believe is the actual sales leadership role, whether it's A's, SDRs, whatever that looks like? And why do you kind of agree that it's super important?
Yeah, I do think that the frontline manager role is the most important
Yeah.
role in the GTM org. I'd say even in the CSM org, in the onboarding org, in the SC org, it's that kind of translation layer. It'd be like if you were writing a movie and you hired actors and a producer, but no director. And so we got the scripts and stuff, and the actors are just kind of like flying around. Hey, I think we'll shoot this scene over here. Like, yeah, I like this one. No, I want this one. The frontline manager is the director. They're the one that takes the vision of the producer, the script, the all idea, and then they make it translatable to the actors that end up creating the finished product. And so you can't have a great sales org without great sales leaders, just like you can't have a great movie without a great director, right? Just not possible. So I think that that's like the main way I think about it. And I also have something when people ask me,
Yeah.
hey, what do I need to do to be a leader? And
Yeah.
they always about that first frontline manager job. And my job, my word is that I've learned in the education industry is your job as a manager is efficacy. It's the ability to affect change. Can I change someone's mindset, someone's behavior, somebody's results, somebody's relationships? Can I change somebody's perception in the org? If you can't change something, then you don't get to be a manager.
Yeah.
That's a caretaker. And we don't really need caretakers in GTM. We need managers that can influence and change outcomes and careers.
I know it's like transformational leadership, isn't it? It's a huge thing. And it's like, we always say, it's like, you want your team to understand that you're the vehicle to like their next step. Right. And if you can get them bought into that and that they're like almost like rowing in the same direction with that, I think it's just like super pivotal. And I've been part of it once. And it's like, it's almost like the ultimate competitive advantage when you have everyone knowing that their leaders helping them get to like that next step. And it's almost like that vehicle. And that's where I've seen huge success when it comes to like revenue, because obviously like customer centric and all that kind of stuff, but just like the actual having that ability to, yeah, transform the leader, transform your team to understand where you want to go is just crazy in terms of just like growth and scalability.
Yeah. When you figure out how to get people to change and
Yeah.
results to change, like that's when you become an extremely valuable person, right? And now listen, everybody talks about the change from rep to leader,
Yeah.
and that's a humongous transition. It's a totally different job. But the change from manager of managing ICs to a director to managing managers, very different. And then the jump from that kind of director VP area to an executive, that was probably for me the hardest transition to make. And honestly, a transition I don't know if I would have made without an executive coach I had named Pamela Matson. And so, like, there's those different transitions in your career, but you've got to first start with, can I get people to change? Because you have to have that skill in all the other places that you kind of go up.
And then this is amazing, like, honestly, because I totally agree. And when people ask me if they want to become a leader, I'm like, honestly, like 90% of your job is just quality control and making sure the reps are doing what they need to do. And then 10% is just like giving your team all the praise, and you just take all the hard stuff. So first of all, like, do you actually want that job? Because truly it's not actually that fun. And also, like, top reps sometimes outperform their leaders anyway. So it's just like, it's like a finance thing as well. But like, in terms of like the widely underperformance in terms of just like quota attainment, for example, when it comes to like the leadership, where do you think is like the things that are going wrong? Like, where do you think there's gaps in the leaders to be able to execute on that role properly? Do you think they've just not had the education on how to execute their role? Or do you just think it's like almost impossible to achieve when you don't have someone like yourself that's like guiding you through it within the company?
I think that there are things inside your locus of control and things that are
Yeah.
outside your locus of control. So, like, for example, let's say that you are a manager of a highly transactional team that needs a lot of inbound leads in
Yeah.
order to hit quota. If marketing or whatever mechanism isn't delivering those leads, it's very difficult for you to have something inside your internal locus of control, like what you can actually wrap your hands around and change.
Yeah.
But you know what? Like, if you're an enterprise leader and you don't have enough pipeline, then you do have more control over that. And you should be having like a prospecting methodology and stuff for people to go after. So it really depends. I think, like, mostly the reason I see most sales managers fail is, one, they're not really a manager, they're a super rep. And they're trying to run like 6 to 8 pipelines on their own and getting involved in every deal. Like, that's the first thing. The second thing is like, they think that they're like the Jesus of salespeople and they're their personal savior, and they will rescue every rep no matter what. You know what? Like, some people just aren't cut out for sales, even though they've been in the job and had the job for a long time. Sometimes they're just not going to be successful at your company, but you can free them into their own success if you just let them go. Right?
Yeah.
That's the second one, and the last one that I see most often is people never really understood how they became successful as a rep. So they
Right.
don't have the ability to teach other people how to be successful. It was just kind of like Michael Jordan can't be a coach because he's so great that he can't understand his own greatness. So he gets frustrated at other people. That's how, like, a lot of times the best reps don't make good managers. They just don't get why people don't do stuff, and they don't have the frameworks and understanding of how to kind of teach somebody to do things the right way. But if you can teach, you can be usually a really, really great frontline manager.
It's super interesting that you say when you said that you had an executive coach to get you to your next level, because like I was that top performing rep that then went into SDR manager and then went into AE and then went into AE manager and all of this kind of stuff. And I know we touched on Caitlin Kelly from Outreach before, but like I actually don't think I would have been able to navigate because at the start I was still on quota and coaching, but I don't think I would have been able to navigate that without a coach, genuinely, because like it's so different, and being able to have to do two roles is just almost impossible. So just like understanding what that role looks like and then being able to coach and then putting change within your reps is just crazy. But if you can get it, then your career is almost like flying.
Yeah, the team lead where I have a quota and I have people is, it's just like, all right, I'm doing two totally different jobs, and like one of them I'm gonna like more than the other, which means that the other one is probably gonna suffer. I'm not a big fan of team
At all.
lead situations.
I'm not at all. And then when it comes to like, when we talk about like they don't know why they're so great, because I see this all the time. Do you, when you look at coaching reps and you look at like underperformance or high performance, do you feel like you can look at a rep and understand how they've got there, understand those characteristic traits, and then basically articulate that back down to the team, even if you don't think that they've got that like A-star characteristic traits, right? Or are you of the mindset of once you've done that analysis, A, fire quickly, and B, then just spend time on the reps that actually do have it?
Uh, I believe so. I think it's kind of like a two-part answer.
Yeah.
I think that some people have their own level of genius and they figure out how to win in a way that, like, isn't always translatable. And I have a great example of that is one of our best reps ever, probably top 3 rep at Everett Outreach. His name's Riley Devine. When I hired him, he's like, I'll be your top rep in 6 months. He was.
I
And he
love
was
that.
always 1, 2, or 3 every single year after that. And Riley was the rep that everybody wanted to listen to his calls because it was kind of like watching Picasso paint. It was like amazing to listen to his calls, but his mind works so fast. He's so sharp and intelligent that I couldn't feel like I could translate what he did into a way that a normal person could do it. He
Interesting.
just operated in a different way. Now I had another rep named Ryan Jander. Ryan Jander, super sharp and everything, but like he just followed the playbook to a T. And I could be like, listen, you can try to learn Riley's way, which is trying to learn like, some kind of, mystic ninja that lives in the upper mountains of Japan, and you can kind of traverse him and maybe he'll enlighten you enough that you can do his moves. Or you know what? I got this dude right here. He's in the boxing gym. You just go take some boxing classes, get hit a few times, punch the bag, and you'll be able to knock somebody out, right? And that's what Jander was. He would just follow the process, right? So you can have reps that have their own genius that you probably shouldn't try to copy because just people aren't going to be able to do it. Then you have those people that are just like genius inside the process. That's what I'm kind of looking for. I would much rather have a genius inside the process person than like a savant that works outside the process but still gets amazing results.
It's honestly, I know exactly what you're talking about because I've had reps the same, and you're just watching their calls like, I don't even know how to tell you guys how to do this. Like he's navigating it. It's psychological. It's the ability to build that rapport so quickly. It's the social intelligence. It's then the emotional IQ. And then it's like the process on top of that. But like I've worked with like insane people, and I always remember asking Mark Kosoglow, like, when is like the best what's the best advice you've ever got from like a customer, or best feedback you've ever got from a customer? And they literally said, when you don't know that you've been sold. And like, if you can do that as a rep, it's like, that's genius. But to coach that and train that into people in a process is almost impossible, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no. A lot of it has to do with your personality. Some of it has to do with your cognitive ability. Like you
Yeah.
said, some of it has to do with your EQ. And like there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And trying to find people that are all above average and awesome at all of those things. There's just not that many humans in the world. There's definitely not that many humans in sales in the world. So if you try to like hire and build an org with that, listen, if you could do it, that would be amazing. But quite honestly, like you wouldn't really need to be that much of a manager
100%.
because those people kind of take care of themselves. I would just rather have the people, the guy that straps on his lunch pail every day, follows the system, and gets the good predictable results every single year.
Yeah. And you understand how he's getting those results as well.
Yeah, I can help him.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So just looking back on your career, because this is like, I love this. I love like thinking about this because like I've led a lot of teams where it's just like, I almost just have to sit down and really understand like how this is going to work. But obviously at some point you must have taken over a team that's probably underperforming, or there's like some serious issues within the team. And this can be like leadership or whatever, but like, what's your kind of like go to, not like first 30, 60, 90 days, but like, how do you identify what's going wrong? And then how do you like almost like bring that team back up? Like, is it a case of you just go in and understand who needs to go and who needs to stay? Or is it a case of understanding actually, have they had like the vehicle almost to be able to succeed? And what does that look like? Like, I would just love your perspective on that, because I'm sure you've taken over an underperforming team in some sort of level over your career.
Yeah, so I have a kind of a way of thinking through this is I require reps to do 2 things and
Yeah.
I require the manager to do 1,
Okay, cool. I love
right?
this. Give it to me.
And what this does is it lets me figure out where the problem is
Okay.
because it's not always the rep. You can have a good rep that's doing badly because their manager stinks. And you can have a rep that's doing great despite their manager stinking. And they could do even better if you got a great manager in there. So
Yeah.
the 2 things I need from reps are coachability
Nice.
and effort. Like, are you going to come to work every day and work hard? And are you going to listen to what the things that we're going to say to you that help you and put those into action and change your behavior? You can do that or not. If I get those 2 things, it's the manager's job to make that turn into outcomes.
Okay.
If I got a rep that can work hard and coach and they're coachable and they're not getting results, that's because the manager isn't able to turn that into outcomes. And that's unacceptable because that's all I need out of a rep. Give me those 2 things, I can make a rep win,
That's so good.
right? As long as they have a decent manager that can help them get outcomes with
For
that,
sure.
right? And so, like, here's again an example
I
is
love
like,
it.
I've had managers that had reps that were, all they want to do is complain about their reps. Oh, the reps won't do this, reps won't do that, right? When I go talk to the reps, they're just like hungry for great advice. And that's when I start to know, are you starving or are you just not eating, right? Is this a hunger strike, or there's nothing out there to eat, right? And that's when I start to go to team meetings and stuff like that. And it's pretty easy to see when a leader's lost their team because they don't feel like that leader has street cred. And
Yeah.
on 30 Minutes to President's Club, which is the podcast I host, we talk about street cred all the time. And one of the most important things you can have as a leader is like, oh, you need me, I'm going to coach you on something. Would you like for me to model that in a call? And then doing that specifically correctly, the way that you described it, and getting the outcome you want in the call, like all of a sudden your reps will listen to you more, right? So that's how I think about when I go into a team. I'm going to look to see, do I have coachable, hardworking reps? If I do, then I'm getting rid of managers. If I have great managers, but the reps are coachable and won't work hard, then I get rid of the reps. And like, that's how I look at it. And then I have like this kind of 10Xer thing where I'm like, all right, are you a 10Xer? In which case I want you to feel connected. I want you to feel like you're growing, and I want you to feel appreciated. Right. And I'm going to have a program to do that for my 10Xers because I never want them to leave, because every 10Xer I have makes my job 2X easier. Right. Then I have the people that should be 10Xers, but they're not yet. And we create a development plan to get them to 10X, or to get them to the bottom category, which is they can't be a 10Xer.
Okay.
And if you can't be a 10Xer, then we're in some state of managing you out of the business so that we can get more 10Xers in. Right. And so that's the kind of the two ways I think about it is, the two things for a rep, one thing for a manager, and then my 10Xer kind of stuff.
I actually love this. I want to dive into the 10Xs because like I'm super passionate about that. But this whole thing's super interesting in terms of like the coachability and work ethic, because I genuinely think feedback's a gift, right? I'm like constantly like review my calls, one, two, three things, or take it into the next call. Just give me 2 things every day. And like that ability to get to the level you need to be is just wild. But I also was like horrendous at school, like riddled with ADHD. I don't know if you can tell. I remember them calling my dad being like, we basically needed to be in a PE lesson every single day for her to be able to sit in the classroom. And dad was like, I don't know why you're calling me. That's fine. I was like so bad. And I was just like, oh my goodness, I'm never going to be a lawyer. I'm never going to earn any money. I'm never going to be a doctor, blah, 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 blah. And I then fell into sales like most people did, first role, and the company scaled aggressively. And I like looked around, I was like, I'm sure if I just obsess over this one skill and outperform everyone in work ethic, I have to win. Like I literally can't fail. So I read every book. I listened to every podcast. I just mastered the skill set of sales. But then more importantly, I just outworked everyone. And I swear to God that outperformed the talent. And loads of people were better than me at the start, but I just kept going. And now I'm just like so grateful I had that foundation. And like, you can always learn, you could always get better. But I truly believe I've got the foundation now that everything's, no matter what happens in my career, I feel like everything's going to be fine because I've got that. But keep growing, keep scaling. But I always like look for those 2 things, that coachability. And like, if I can give them feedback, I test when I give them feedback to see how they respond to it. If they don't respond to it how I would have responded when I got feedback, I'm like, I don't know if I can manage you. Like, honestly, like, and their level of work ethic. Cause I say to my friends, I'm just like, honestly, if you want like a lot of money and you want a lot of freedom, if you get good at sales and just work really hard, it can actually happen. And it's just crazy that one skill has like transformed my entire life, which I genuinely thought I was going to be like some legal PA or something for the rest of my life, because I was never going to make into anything that the school wanted me to do. But it is those 2 things, right? And that'll give you success.
Yeah, 100%. I'm really lucky. One of the things my dad gave me was a strong work ethic. He told me when I was almost 16, which, in the US, you can't really start working till you're 16 unless you get, in some states you can do other stuff. You can, some states you can't. But like in mine, he's like, listen, if you don't have a job by the time you turn 16, he's like, I'm driving you to the grocery store and you will have a job. My dad was very, very successful. I didn't need a job. He just knew that I needed a job, if you know what I'm saying.
Dad used to drive me to school, and every single day used to be like, what's it all about? And I used to just be like, work ethic and outcomes, work ethic outcomes, work ethic outcomes. And then I went to university, and I was like, basically, I'm just going to have to revise the whole paper and learn it off by heart because I'm never going to be able to understand the actual questions in the exam. And I was just like, okay, work ethic outcomes. But I genuinely believe you have that work ethic, then the outcomes come.
Yeah, no doubt. It's not, intelligence helps, EQ helps, but I believe that there's still the ability to outwork people, and you can always control how hard you work.
Yeah. I love it. So talk to me about the 10Xs. Like what I love to ask people, especially with someone like a career of yours, what are the common traits that you've seen in with the 10Xs out of work, like off calls? Like what are they actually doing? Is there like a common thing that everyone talks about morning routine and stuff, but like genuinely when you have these 10Xs that you're obviously close with, seen them perform, like what are they doing that's different from the people that are in the development or the people that are slowly being let go?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's a lot of common traits other than, they just kind of win. I don't know if I have like a trait. They're usually smarter, but not always. I think what I'm looking for is someone that if I say, I'm giving you this, what they do is they take it seriously. And then when they give it back to me, it's more than what I gave them before. And they consistently do that. You know what I mean? Like they don't they don't get wound up in the day to day. Like they have an ability to kind of like navigate their way through all of that stuff in order to get done what like needs to get done. And they always do just a little bit better than you expect, if not a lot better than you expect. And right, and they're kind of a little bit more aggressive or proactive about, hey, I want to grow and stretch. And that's why I came up with the three things that I think 10Xers need is they need to be acknowledged, right? They need to understand that they are in a different category and that the company values them differently because they perform differently. And that it has really strong reverberations throughout the whole org. When people see, if I do my job really, really well, this company will not let me leave and I'll always enjoy my job here, right? So
100%.
you got to have that part of the appreciation. The second thing is they need to be growing. These people need to feel like they're expanding their responsibility, expanding their pay, whatever it is, right? Like they need to feel like they're moving forward. I would say that is probably one common trait now that I'm saying this is like they just have this addiction to kind of moving forward. Like sitting still is just not cool for them, right? Like, oh, you know what? Like I mowed the grass today in half an hour. That's great. Next week, I'm going to try to mow the grass in 28 minutes.
Literally me with everything I do.
Exactly. Or you just crush it like that, right? And then the last thing is they need to feel connected. They need to feel like that they have a connection to the executive team, to the leaders, that they have a say, right? That they are being listened to and heard. That they, for example, with a 10Xer, if I'm visiting them like in a ride along and their kid has a soccer game, I'm probably going to the soccer game that night and not sitting in my hotel room because I need them to feel how
Love
much
that.
I feel connected to them. I want them to feel that connected, right? And I think when you give a great performer, appreciation, connection, and growth, they feel locked in.
I honestly, like that is just like insane. So you actually have like almost like a framework for that with every business that you go to.
Yeah, I would say one of my superpowers is relationship building. Like when I came to Docebo, I want to say that it was no less than 50 people that reached out to me about wanting to work together again. And when I started my startup, there was no less than 20, 30 people that reached out and said, hey, like, how can I help? What can I
How
do?
special is that?
Well, we talk about like the what to do to be a manager, and one is that efficacy thing. The second thing I tell people is you got to build your squad. Who's your squad? If you're not building a squad, like one of my best VPs at Outreach, he's got his squad now. He's at his second place after Outreach. Every time he just takes his whole squad with him. And imagine what that does when you take your squad and like each other, you trust each other. There's like good vibes and good conversations when you're not in the room because they're on your side. They understand how you do things, right? And like building your squad is an extremely underrated part of sales leadership. It's not your network, it's your squad. It's more than a network.
100%. And it's so interesting, right? And I could speak for hours about this, but obviously, like hiring wrong is just like the worst thing that you can do. And it kind of takes away the guesswork from hiring. Like, I followed my leaders around like my first 3 jobs, right? Because and I never got interviewed. They just knew who I was. They knew my ability to perform. I would come in and I would execute. And to be honest, they want me because I make them look good, right? So it's just like, but it's just insane that like now I'm growing into like leadership at the higher level. I look back, I'm like, oh, I kind of get what was all going on back then. And it's just so true. Awesome. Well, look, we do need to wrap up, but I do want to ask you one thing because I saw on your LinkedIn about the whole AI and humans are differentiators. And I really just want to touch on that, right? Because there's a lot of things going on right now about like SDR's roles are going to be wiped out. Anything under like a 40, 50K ACV is going to be like wiped out by AI. I passionately think that humans are everything. And I've only ever sold purely on my social ability and my ability to create compelling relationships. I literally believe if you don't have a champion, you don't win the deal, right? And I've sold millions of dollars of deals through my champion, right? So I would just love because I just saw it and I was just like, I'm super aligned with that. But like, what's your take on it? Thoughts, feedback? Because that's all we're hearing on the market right now.
Yeah, I think it's, paranoia. I mean, listen, spreadsheets were supposed to kill accountants, computers were supposed to kill like what my dad did. You know what I mean? Like there's just a million things out there like that. Like it's a cyclical thing. Let's just take it to a conclusion for a second, Laura. Let's say that this AI does wipe out every BDR job and any deal under 20K no longer needs a salesperson. You know what we did was we just probably wiped out hundreds of thousands of jobs. And guess what? The people that had those jobs can no longer buy stuff because they no longer are making money. And then everything starts to collapse. Like you just can't wipe out an entire section of an economy and the workers in that economy. Like it just collapses the whole economy. The economy is like a Jenga tower.
Yeah.
If I take out 20K people out of that, like all of a sudden things start to get really shaky, if not collapsing. So also listen, let's say that all of a sudden, again, people are very cyclical and we do get to this place. You know what's going to happen is one company's going to be like, we're not going to use AI, we're going to use humans.
And
And
then
then they're going to
differentiator.
on using humans. And then next thing you know, everybody's going to use humans. And then somebody's like, hey, we're going to just use AI. And then we're going to go back. It's like, this is how this stuff works, right? Like it's ultimately different is good. AI placing people is different right now.
Yeah.
And so it's special, but I don't know. I don't think so. I think that the thing though that interests me the most though is if there was this company called Computer Technology Company of California, I think is what it's called. And I can't remember the name of the app, but I heard about this app and it was like AI doing magical stuff. And so I went to the website and the call to action was just text us. Okay. So I click it and it's like, and it texts me and it's like, hey, Mark, I can't remember the name of the product, this product thingy. And it's like, we're super close right now. Nothing, if you want to get in, like you have to like convince me. That's literally what it said. I was like, what? All right. I was like, what do you mean convince you? Well, it was an AI and it said it was an AI and it was an asshole AI. But you know what? Because it was an asshole AI and it was novel, I was like, oh, I'm into it. And I'd be like, well,
Yeah, you can't convince me.
that's right. I can do it. And they're like, oh, he's like, well, we know who you are. Like, you did outreach, you did this and this and this, like blah, blah, blah. Like, but you have to tell us why you're worthy to get into our product. And I was like, well, what about this? And they're like, okay. And then they're like, it's going to be $2,000 a month. I'm like, there's no way I'm paying that. I got it down to like $1 a month. Right. Like, and I literally had like an hour and a half long fun conversation with this asshole AI. Now, what if a human had done that? It would have been like, click, see you later. There's no way I would have taken it. And so like our perception and the stuff that AI can do and get away with because it's not a human, that's the thing that's super interesting to me. We seem to be more patient and more trusting of an AI that we absolutely know is hallucinating and not doing good stuff than we are of humans. No, we do have thousands of years of stuff that humans are dishonest, but to me.
It's honestly so true. Like I use it a lot for like just streamlining all my processes. Like if I had what I use AI for now when we were like scaling SIA so aggressively, I probably could have 3-4x my number in a year purely because like the level of proposals we were sending out and all of that kind of stuff, you can just streamline the whole process. So I do think it's going to make those 10x's even better if they use it correctly. So I do think there's actually a place for it in that sense, but I completely agree with you in terms of like everything that you've just said. Especially with BDRs having to like drive value first for the meeting as well. Like back in the day, I mean, I don't think cold calling's dead. I don't think anything's dead at all. But I did used to book through like LinkedIn voice notes and all this kind of stuff like direct book. Whereas now it becomes more of like a value play. People are doing different things to kind of give them value before the new business meeting and all this kind of stuff. I just don't see how AI would be able to create that level of like value and connection before they even get to the new business meeting either.
Yeah. I think there's some hardwired buyer behaviors. Like, for example, I can't tell you how many companies have been like, hey, Mark, can you help us smooth out our revenues so the last month of the quarter isn't like the biggest month? And I'm like, no, I can't help you with that. That is like an ingrained buyer DNA thing that like we've trained them that if they wait until the last minute, we're going to keep giving them discounts. And so there's just no way to get out of it. And you can say, we don't do discounts. You can say best and final. It doesn't matter. People are going to sign at the end of the month, end of the quarter, the last month of the quarter. So there's like ingrained buyer stuff. And I think one of the ingrained buyer things literally is I kind of want to feel a connection in some way, someone. And I don't know if AI, no matter how helpful it's going to be, is going to be able to do that. Now, maybe if we have AI buyers and AI sellers, that would work. But I think as long as we have human buyers, there'll be some human in the loopness of whatever sales cycle you're doing.
Yeah, it's funny because people have like such opposing views to both of us, right? Like I'm super aligned with what you're saying, and I think any top sales rep to streamline it should definitely use it. But there's so much out there that's just like, it's almost just like, I don't know, I get scared. I'm just like, whoa, I love the SDR role. I started my career as an SDR. I scaled up the business from an SDR. I've built SDR teams. Like, I'm just like, if that role was to be ever wiped out, it would actually be horrific.
You know what's hilarious to me is I had people that are like big kind of AI, automation, N8N, like wizards. And they'll be like, hey, listen, sales is going to go away. And I was like, what's really going to go away is like, there's going to be AI that can create all the workflows that you do right now. So you're going to go away. And they're like, no, I'm not. I'm like, oh, so when you're saying it's not AI, but when you touch my thing, it's, okay, I see how we're doing here. Right. And that's literally, as soon as you threaten them, they're like, not going to happen. I'm like, well, why not? And then they tell me the reasons. I'm like, you just made my argument for me. And so as humans, we're all going to like defend our ground, right? We're like, this is how I make my money. This is how I provide for my family. Let's protect it. And then, but because you're trying to protect yours, you kind of deflect to everybody else's. Well, you know what's going away? Entry level accountants. That's going away. That doesn't affect me as a sales guy at all, but that AI is coming for you, entry level accountant, but not coming for entry level sales. All right. So it's just a
Honestly.
weird way that humans are dealing with this right now to me.
Yeah, for sure. I just love that it's in your headline. I think that's epic. Look, I know that we do have to wrap and I've taken so much of your time, but I'd love to just finish on now you are like where you are in your career and just all the way back to even pre-outreach. For people that are listening to this that are like aspiring CROs or even CROs right now, like do you have any clear gaps that you've basically closed while you've been going through the levels that you've been going through that you wish you'd kind of known when you were building the team at outreach or anything like that when it comes to like high performance or just being a good leader in itself, right? Just building that culture where that squad that are around you that want to win with Mark,
Yeah. I mean, I think the easiest learning that, or the learning that kind of like hits me hard right now when you say that is that there's a lot of stuff around just like people skills and, valuing the person, not getting confused, like that the number is more important than the person, stuff like that. But like the, the, the most tangible situation that I had where I felt like, oh my gosh, I've actually learned something that I didn't know before. It's not like common sense that has helped me feel like I create value was we're probably like at 150 million at outreach, something like that. I had hired like what I thought was like the best VP team on the planet, and we loved working together. And I had a guy that was running enterprise, a guy that was running mid market, and a guy that was running SMB. And all of a sudden, I had these VPs that if somebody asked me to fix a mid market problem, my VP was probably better at fixing than me,
Okay.
specifically for their like area of expertise. Right?
Very nice.
And up to that point at outreach, I've been known as like the problem solver guy. Like, hey, we got a problem, Mark. Oh, do this. Mark will plan
What?
it out, figure it out, launch it, execute, measure it, whatever. All of a sudden, I'm like, why am I doing this when like my man Chris Albro can do this better than me?
Yeah.
Like enterprise, like I'm not as good as him in enterprise. And so I started to have like an identity crisis because all of a sudden I felt at risk because I'm not creating value. And so my coach, her name was Pamela, she's like, Mark, we have to redefine how you create value for the company. And it took us about 6 weeks, but we landed on three things. One was I need to clearly communicate my expectations. Two, I need to clearly communicate the timeline by which those expectations need to be met. And lastly is I need to evaluate the mental model by which people are solving the problems that they're tasked to solve.
Right.
So like now all of a sudden I was like, oh, hey, Chris, here's this enterprise problem. We need to increase win rates by 10% in the next 2 quarters. And so there's my clear communication of timeline and the objective,
Yeah.
and be like, hey, can you get me a plan in a couple of weeks about how we might do that? And then Chris and I would then walk through the plan together, and I would just be like, what did you think about marketing helping you over here? What did you do with RevOps on this over here? How did you think about this thing I just read on LinkedIn over here? Right? And just evaluating that mental model and helping people think more, you know, collaboratively or like in a larger, different perspective that was in taking into account more stuff. That became my job. And all of a sudden I felt reinvigorated, and we like kind of re-accelerated at outreach, partly because of that in a way. And I learned a lot. That's how I learned what an executive was, is it wasn't
That's
doing the work anymore. Right. So, I still like to get my hands in and do the work, but like if you're only doing the work, you're not an executive. You have to think about the work that needs to be done, and that's the majority of your job.
100%. Because, like, honestly, from when you said that straight away, my first thought process was just like, oh, he's won. He's like won at the game. He's built a team that basically replaces him. But your ability to hire, coach, and develop your team to be better than you, to me, is just like, that's like dream state of a leader, right? But then I can see it from your perception. You're just like, okay, well, now I have like 5 people that are covering all the things. Like, now I need to level up to bring them up as well. But like initially, I was just like, oh, you've won at the game. You've become a leader, and you've got all of your VPs that are better than you. Your hiring must be outrageous, and your ability to coach them must be world class.
Well, I think, listen, when you're selling one of the hottest technology
Yeah, it
products,
was
I
huge.
think great talent, right? We got lucky there. We were able to find great people and get them in, and then they kind of took over if you gave them the freedom.
Yeah, 100%. Your culture, everything at Outreach, like the rise of Sam Nelson, just everything in that period was just like world class. And it was like best in class, best practice, your culture, everything about like the business was just flying. But I just think it's super interesting now you are where you are to look back and like, I'm just intrigued. I mean, I'm just a nerd at this thing. I love it. Awesome, Mark. Well, it's been lovely to have you on. We really, really appreciate it. And thank you for dealing with my crazy questions.
No problem. That's fun.
Thanks, Mark.